Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children occupies a peculiar place in modern narrative history. It transforms the epic of a newly independent nation into an exuberant carnival of voices, dialects, and times. If Dostoevsky discovered polyphony in the soul, and Faulkner in the fracturing of familial time, Rushdie discovers it in history itself. India, at the instant of its midnight birth, begins to speak, not through one mouth but through 1,000. Saleem Sinai, the self-declared narrator and reliquary of the 20th century, embodies this collective utterance. His body becomes the chronotope of India, his disintegration a metaphor for a continent perpetually rewriting itself. From its first sentence, the novel demands dialogic reading. Saleem admits that his story is inseparable from a national one. He confesses invention, distortion, contradiction. Thus, author and narrator enter a perpetual dialogue regarding truth and storytelling. Bakhtin's distinction between monologic narration and dialogic voice applies with unusual precision here. Saleem's unreliable narration is not failure, but form. His hesitations, revisions, and self-corrections reproduce the very rhythm of historical discourse, where official record and personal memory constantly debate each other. Each paragraph becomes a miniature courtroom. The past is interrogated, but never sentenced. At the heart of Bakhtin's theory lies heteroglossia, the multiplicity of social languages within a culture. Midnight's Children explodes this principle like a firework. English mingles with Urdu expletives, Bombay slang, Kashmiri endearments, bureaucratic acronyms, religious quotations. Each register carries its worldview: colonial administration, domestic intimacy, folktale superstition, mass media, and revolutionary rhetoric. Rushdie refuses to hierarchize them. The sacred jostles the obscene, and syntax itself becomes battlefield. Through this mixture, language regains its carnival energy, official English erodes into the laughter of its colonized speakers. By forcing the imperial tongue to host Indian idioms, Rushdie enacts a literary decolonization that mirrors Bakhtin's folk laughter toppling authority. Polyphony in Rushdie operates not merely as coexistence of persons, but as collision of epistemologies. The novels, Midnight Children, all born at the stroke of independence, represent the nation's variegated voices, telepathically connected yet mutually unintelligible. Saleem, who can hear their thoughts, occupies the position of dialogic medium. But his gift soon becomes burden. He cannot impose harmony without betraying difference. The disintegration of the Children's Conference prefigures the political sectarianism of the new nation. In Bakhtinian terms, Saleem's failure to sustain dialogue dramatizes the perpetual unfinalizability of collective life. Every unity immediately decomposes into further conversation. The chronotope of Midnight's Children extends from August 15, 1947 to the emergency of the 1970s, yet its temporal logic is spiral, not linear. Saleem narrates from a pickle factory, preserving the past in jars. This setting materializes the Bakhtinian idea of time thickened, history made edible, sensuous, simultaneously corrupting and conserving. Every chutney he bottles testifies to the persistence of the present within the past. His memory, like fermentation, mixes incongruous ingredients until they produce new flavor. The chronotope of the pickle room thus converts domestic space into historiographic imagination, a comic inversion of the Chronicle Hall or National Archive. Rushdie's narration thrives on dialogism not only between voices, but between narrative modes. The epic joins hands with the chronicle, the fairy tale with the political tract. Saleem repeatedly addresses Padma, his listener, whose simple realism grounds the reader's disbelief. Their exchanges form the novel's inner dialogue. She questions, interrupts, scolds, becomes conscious of storytelling itself. Each time she doubts him, narrative power decentralizes. The presence of the listener prevents monologue, ensuring that the tale remains open, contestable. Padma is no mere framing device, but embodiment of the reader as participating voice, an echo of the dialogic reader Bakhtin envisioned. The carnivalesque pulses throughout Midnight's Children. Birth and independence fuse in one cosmic joke. A baby sneezes as empire departs. Disorder replaces ceremony. Royal genealogies blend with film gossip, saints share the page with politicians. Bodies swell, shrink, crack, and multiply. The grotesque realism that Bakhtin interpreted in Rabelais reappears in Rushdie's India. Saleem's nasal collapse, Shiva's hypersexual potency, Parvati's magical pregnancy, each body inverses power and ideology. National borders dissolve into corporeal exchanges. The carnival allows the re-entry of the body into history, mocking the disembodied abstractions of both colonial reason and nationalist purity. Grotesque laughter also infects political solemnity. Nehru's letter to the Midnight's Child becomes parroted when the child matures into failure. Emergency propaganda echoes religious sermon and circus advertisement simultaneously. Hierarchies, whether political or linguistic, survive only as targets of play. The Prime Minister herself, thinly disguised as the widow, appears within a satiric theater whose audience already knows her lines. The carnival of governance collapses into self-parody, illustrating Bakhtin's thesis that in the marketplace of voices, power inevitably becomes comic. Yet Rushdie's laughter is not nihilistic, it is in Bakhtin's sense, regenerative. Amid disintegration, it preserves potentiality. Saleem's body, splitting apart into hundreds of pieces at the novel's close, fulfills the carnival law of renewal through death. Dispersed into the multitude of his fellow citizens, he attains dialogic immortality. The 1001 pieces echo Scheherazade, linking Indian narrative to the broader archipelago of oral traditions. Thus, national catastrophe transforms into linguistic continuity, the word survives where the hero perishes. The relationship between Saleem and Shiva exemplifies dialogism at the level of myth. Their switched identities at birth reverse social destiny. The rich child becomes poor, the illegitimate becomes celebrated warrior. Each mirrors and mocks the other. Their conflict dramatizes Bakhtin's double-voiced word, a discourse that always addresses an opponent. Shiva's violent literalism counterpoints Saleem's allegorical imagination. Neither triumphs, together they compose the composite voice of post-colonial man, half mythic, half bureaucratic, always in negotiation with meaning. Heteroglossia reaches its apogee in Rushdie's treatment of narrative time. Flashbacks, interruptions, letters, songs, and slogans coexist without subordination. Cinema bleeds into politics, advertisement rhythms infect prayer. The very typography of the novel, capitalized exclamations, italic hybrids, embodies a visual carnival of language. English becomes a porous membrane through which the subcontinent's polyphony resonates. Like the medieval carnival square described by Bakhtin, Rushdie's page gathers all tongues into noisy equality. The chronotope of the nation, unlike that of the traditional epic, refuses closure. Independence does not mark arrival, but perpetual becoming. Saleem's narrative cycles through partitions, wars, and migrations until chronology dissolves into simultaneity. In the final vision of India's crowds, time resembles Benji's sensory flux from Faulkner, a simultaneity of births and deaths, but now scaled to history itself. This temporal carnival resists progress narratives imposed by colonial historiography. It insists that national identity is polyphonic repetition rather than linear ascent. Interwoven with this historical dialogue is the conversation between languages of belief and skepticism. One of Bakhtin's central questions, how the novel absorbs sacred discourse without surrendering to dogma, finds its Indian answer here. Rushdie's Quranic echoes coexist with street obscenities, miracles occur beside parliamentary sessions. The result is neither blasphemy nor piety, but dialogic tension, the coexistence of incompatible worldviews. Faith, like language, becomes plural. Padma's insistence that Saleem stop digressing and, come to the point, performs an ironic function. It voices the reader's impatience with unfinalizability. Yet each time she interrupts, Saleem confesses that all stories leak, all jars crack. Here the novel articulates Bakhtin's ethical aesthetics. Truth exists only in the ongoing utterance, never in completion. Saleem's crumbling body literalizes that insight. His tragedy is also his participation in the world's dialogue. Rushdie's deployment of parody furthers the carnival ethic. Colonial prose, missionary moralism, socialist realism, all appear only to be deflated by laughter. But parody in Midnight's Children is affectionate as much as rebellious, it acknowledges its parents even while mocking them. Bakhtin called this double-voicedness the essence of dialogic laughter, a consciousness that refuses purity. By transforming imperial English into a hybrid vernacular, Rushdie achieves what Bakhtin described as the revitalization of language through contact with the unofficial. The political dimension of this polyphony is profound. Voices silenced in official historiography, women, servants, magicians, soldiers, speak through digression and gossip. The very structure of the novel mimics subaltern storytelling, discontinuous, oral, prone to exaggeration. The reader thus encounters a history that talks back. Through the crackling syntax of Saleem's memory, the marginalized regain speech. History becomes conversation among the forgotten. Even the act of reading is carnivalized. The reader, oscillating between belief and skepticism, joins Saleem and Padma in co-creation. Meaning arises through interaction. The novel's self-reflexivity, its awareness of being book, pickle, myth, transforms consumption into ritual humor. As Bakhtin wrote of Rabelais' feasts, food becomes symbol of world communication. In Rushdie's Factory of Pickles, art performs the same function, digesting multiplicity into continuity without annihilating flavor. The ending, in which Saleem foresees his body crumbling into 600 million pieces, must be read through Bakhtin's concept of grotesque realism. The body's degradation is not abjection but renewal, fragmentation promises proliferation of voices. The nation, like Bakhtin's carnival crowd, regenerates through collective laughter at its own fall. Saleem's dissolution mirrors the author's surrender of narrative control, he becomes language's servant, not its master. The polyphonic body of India replaces the solitary hero of European modernism. In sum, Midnight's Children demonstrates that the dialogic imagination can itself become historiography. Rushdie rewrites the grand narratives of empire and nation from within the folk laughter that Bakhtin traced to medieval marketplaces. His novel is an argument with time, irreverent, affectionate, unending. Through its mingling of tongues, it converts the colonial monologue into democratic conversation. Thus, the work closes not on silence, but on infinite responsiveness. The reader's ear, catching echoes of Urdu cadence within English rhyme, completes the dialogue. If Faulkner's polyphony mourned the collapse of tradition, Rushdie's celebrates the impossibility of closure. Both share the same underlying faith, that voice itself is the last freedom.